Howdy gamers, and the scariest thing just happened to me. I was outside, and a girl made eye contact with me. I don't know what to do. I can feel my virginity just draining away. Oh, thank God. Mr. Pants, apart from making me just feel really uncomfortable, was also the mascot for Rare's website for a few years. But the end of the world just doesn't come out of nowhere. There's always a reason, and we all have Lee Loveday to thank. He joined Rare back in 1994, but surprisingly he didn't join on for character design, although he definitely had a talent for it. Instead, he wrote the story for some of Rare games, helping out with games like Donkey Kong Country 2 and Blast Corps. On top of that, he also helped out with a lot of manuals for the games, including Diddy Kong Racing. So, when the time came for Rare to get a website, he was chosen to help make it. Of course, when making a website, you need something to keep people's attention, and Lee knew that, so when designing the survey section of the website, he needed a render of an existing Rare character. Unfortunately for humanity, all of the usual artists at the time were busy doing all things not that. So, to spite everyone, he made the devil incarnate. Apparently, Mr. Pants only took him 30 seconds to draw, and I mean I'd be concerned if it took him any longer, but soon people began to notice Mr. Pants and actually grew attached to him, and for a while he was Rare's mascot. He even got some cameos in some games. His first one happened back in 1999 with the cult classic Jet Force Gemini. Basically, in that game you played as a law enforcement team known as Jet Force Gemini who are attempting to stop Mizar, who's controlling a giant army of ants. Pretty crazy stuff, I know, but in the game there's a cheat menu where it has stuff like Rainbow Blood, Jet Force Kids, and an Ants into Pants mode where all the ants would turn into Mr. Pants. Honestly, it's amazing, but the references don't stop there. In Banjo-Tooie in Boggy's Igloo, he's just watching some good old Mr. Pants. Even after Microsoft bought out Rare, he would still appear in some of their games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Viva Pinata, and Grab by the Ghoulies. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so long story short, the Devil Incarnate was born, and people liked him for some reason. But around that same time in 1999, they had just started work on Banjo-Tooie, and Tim Stapner approached Paul Makashek with a sheet of paper and a couple of rules on it, and he asked Paul if they thought they could make a handheld game like it. So, the two of them started on the project, and the first name they thought of for it was Nutcracker. If you're wondering why they chose to call it Nutcracker, when I mean literally anyone can think of 5 better names off the top of their head, it's because the game was temporarily using a song from Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker suite, so of course they had to name the game after that. Anyways, the team decided that they actually wanted to sell the game, so they started brainstorming a bit, and another name for the game at the time was Tartan, which is honestly not a bad name for it. Tartan is a patterned cloth, basically making a grid shape, which I mean, when you look at the grid-based gameplay that Mr. Pants is, that kinda makes sense. Obviously though, that name didn't stick, and in E3 2001, we got our first look at this project with Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers, where we can actually see a lot of the design elements that would go into Mr. Pants, with it having the same shaped and colored pieces from the final game. On top of that, we also got to see some cut concepts, like the ability of being able to switch between a 3D isometric view and a top-down 2D one. Another cool one was, at the time, there was an idea for there to be a 4-player mode, but that also got cut. And even though some things were cut, the main concept of making squares and rectangles to erase puzzle pieces was still there. Long story short, the game looked pretty far along. I mean, the game's probably gonna come out soon. It's not like anything's gonna happen that's gonna make Rare not be able to make a Donkey Kong game. Oh, it wouldn't be Rare in 2002 without them selling their company to Microsoft. So, because they couldn't use the Donkey Kong name anymore, they needed a new direction for the game. Apparently they tried a Banjo version where it was called Banjo's Jiggy Juggle and even a Sailor Man version, but this game wasn't even their main priority at the time, more of just a side passion project, so they weren't too concerned with it. Plus, I mean, everyone knows that there's just no way that this game could have worked with Banjo. I mean, only good characters could star in this game. Anyways, despite not choosing a character right away, they did still want to make this game a reality, and they kept coming back to the project time and time again, because they thought there was potential. But as development continued, so did their search for an available Rare character, so eventually they decided on Mr. Pants because why not? Then Brian Stevenson, who was new to Rare at the time, came along. He was sort of interested in the whole Mr. Pants game, and he was poking fun at it, but eventually he went home and drew some art for the game, and showed it to Paul Makashek, and from there he was part of the team. He drew all the art for the game, and maybe art's not the best word to use here, but I'd be lying if I said the game didn't have a strong aesthetic. So, now that they had the idea of this being a Mr. Pants game, they had a lot to work with because they now had a creative direction to go in, and as Paul Matrasek put it, we were just having a laugh and trying to make the game as stupid, silly, and absurd as we possibly could. So, for Brian, that meant he was going to have a lot of fun with the drawings. Of course, just making the game aesthetically stupid wasn't enough. This was still the same puzzle game from 1999, and they still needed some puzzles. So, since most of the company was busy with less important matters, they got a bunch of people in testing to submit designs for puzzles, and one of those people who submitted a puzzle design was Justin Cook. Paul Matrasek really liked Justin's puzzles, so he got him to make most of the puzzles for Mr. Pants. So, finally, all that was left for this thing was some music and voice acting. So, for that, Paul turned to Robin Beeland, who had helped out with soundtracks like Donkey Kong Country, Conker's Bad Fur Day, GoldenEye 007, and many more. Honestly, Robin just perfectly captured the essence of this game with his soundtrack, and as far as the voice acting stuff went, they turned to John Silk, who had worked on the testing of the game. Well, more accurately, John turned to them, as he put it. I hung out and badgered them, and badgered the head of audio, Robin, to give me a job that didn't really exist. I think he might have just given me the job to get me off his back. And as Robin put it, they gave him the role because he was good at doing dumb voices. But then came a problem. How are they going to convince anyone to publish this game? Obviously, Microsoft weren't going to publish the game since, it was for the Game Boy Advanced. But luckily, Rare had a trick up their sleeve. They negotiated with THQ to publish 4 games for them, being Banjo Pilot, Saber Wolf, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge, and of course, Mr. Pants. And although for whatever reason THQ might have only wanted to publish 2 or 3 of those games, the deal was that they had to publish all 4 if they wanted even one. So who knows, maybe if it wasn't for that deal, Mr. Pants would have just never been published, because as it were, THQ didn't have much faith in the title and only made 20,000 copies. To be fair, that's 20,000 more copies than Geist DS ever sold, but that game got cancelled, so I don't think that's fair. Of course, that's just the backstory behind the game. What about the actual game itself? And it's pretty fun. Though, the game is pretty basic. There are only 4 main modes, being Puzzle, where you go through the game's puzzles, with 2 difficulties being Easy and Medium, with the difficulty referring to the difficulty of the puzzle. In total, there are 75 puzzles, being 25 easy puzzles and then 50 medium puzzles. But if you beat them all, you unlock Max's Mystical Muddle, although I'm not too sure if this exists because the only mention I found of it online is on the It's Mr. Pants Wikipedia page. And to be honest, I'm not sure if anyone's beaten all the puzzles in Mr. Pants to even find out. Also, shot in the dark here, but I'm pretty sure the It's Mr. Pants Wikipedia page isn't the most reliable source. Anyways, the other 2 game modes include Wipeout, which is a lot of fun. Basically, there's some random blocks on the screen, and on Easy it's 2 colors, and on Medium it's still 2 colors, there's just more blocks. You also have a set time limit, and when you place a block, you'll get another, and your goal is just to clear out the entire screen before your time runs out, but do it as fast as you can. The random elements of the preset block placement and the blocks that you'll receive mixed with the high score time element makes this game mode really addicting. Plus, as an added bonus, there are the developer times to beat. And then finally, there's Marathon, where you try and get the highest score in 5 minutes. Basically, just clear out as many shapes as you can before the time runs out. There's also the Crayon Snake on the side, and he erases your blocks as he goes, and you can't place blocks on him. But if you clear blocks, he'll slowly retreat. Honestly, all the modes are just a lot of fun, and the base puzzle mode acts as a great introduction into the game's mechanics of making rectangle and block shapes out of pieces to clear them, and the Marathon and Wipeout modes add a lot of replayability. Unfortunately, reviews at the time didn't think so though, calling the game mediocre and giving it reviews that reflected that. On top of giving the game mediocre reviews, a lot of journalists just weren't fans of Mr. Pants, one even calling him the world's most ineptly John and frankly crap game character. That was It's Mr. Pants, and on my official Eric Derrick Will This Franchise Come Back scale, I give this game a no. I just don't see it happening. I feel like it was sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity between the friends, and I don't even think if it hadn't been for THQ that the game would have even been published. Plus, considering it got mediocre reviews and it wasn't even featured in Rare's Replay, which is literally a celebration of Rare's history and he's one of their mascots, I just don't see him coming back anytime soon. Plus, he's not even featured on Air's website to this day. I won't lie though, talking about a video game mascot that got drawn in 30 seconds was kind of inspiring, and it made me want to start drawing again. So, I drew this. I call it Ben. You see, if Mr. Pants, a 30-second drawing, could get a game, imagine my chances of a 60-second drawing getting a game. I mean, it's twice as likely, so I'll just sit here and wait for that to happen. And until then, stay safe, and I love you guys.